Welcome back to the channel, my friends. This is Legendary Tabletop. I am your host, Greg, and today we're going to get into talking a little bit about the White Lions of Chrace. Now, these are from the old world of Warhammer, and from the faction, specifically the High Elves. And the High Elves are kind of like the good guys of the setting, though they are also deeply flawed. And there are a lot of really unforgettable characters. Tyrion, Teclis, we see Alistair the White Lion here, and some great stories that we're not going to get into in the Warhammer novels. Now, the White Lions themselves, they are the personal bodyguards of the Phoenix King. And the Phoenix King is sort of like this king slash deity of the High Elves. And so these guys do not mess around. In the lore, they are basically like the best chosen young men, elves, pardon me, and they have this affinity towards the actual literal white lions, and they have to go out and prove themselves and hunt one of these white lions, much like the Spartan, much like many cultures, prehistoric cultures. There is this sort of hunting rite of passage, and then they would kill the lion, skin the lion, and wear the lion pelt as armor to terrify their enemies. Now, today's episode, we're going to print the old school type of wargame miniatures, the square bases, the rank and file units, and that's kind of what I like the most. It's kind of like the nostalgic thing for me. Growing up, me and my brother and some of our friends had armies on square bases with the old metal units, and so to this day I still like to print and paint armies in this fashion. So recently I got onto my mini factory and I discovered a new creator. Now, the name is pretty hard to pronounce, Kayushenko, something along those lines, so I'm just not going to try. I'm going to leave the link below for you so that if you like these miniatures, you can click and go and get some of them for yourself. Now, I joined this person's Patreon, they call it a tribe, on my mini factory, and got a bunch of welcome models and a bunch of these high elf units. So I decided that I love these units and I'm going to print them out on my Frozen Sonic Mini here. And we've skipped ahead a little bit. I've printed these little boys and we're watching them spin and have a little suntan on the Anycubic curing station, and we've printed them in this beautiful, outrageous candy red resin. Now, I actually found this resin at a store that we have here in the Midwest, so if you're not from where I'm from, you probably are not familiar with this store, Micro Center, which is basically a computer wholesale. Found the resin and wanted to just try it out instead of ordering everything on Amazon all the time. Turned out pretty good, just the color is a little intense. So we super glue these guys' little feetsies and we glue them to the base. We've printed out some square bases. The bases are actually from OnePageRules, which is a really popular miniature and wargame company that is based in 3D printing. I'll also put the link to OnePageRules down below so you can check out their stuff. And we've primed these lion boys with the airbrush, and I'm doing a zenithal, as they call it, highlight, where we're going to take a gray craft paint and do a sideways dry brush, and then I'm going to take a lighter white craft paint and I'm going to dry brush downward to imitate the light. Now, you can do this with the airbrush. I just honestly prefer to do it by hand. I feel like I have a little bit more control. But I think that'll be personal to you if you're also an airbrush user. So you can see now how the highlights and shadows have been accentuated on the models. And I'm taking some of these really amazing, my favorite paints ever, the Army Painter Speed paints. We're starting with the yellow and the orange, and we're going to put that onto the gold metal parts of the axe. There's a top and a bottom there, you can see, and the lion pelt. And these sort of like textured surfaces are really perfect for contrast paints, whether you're using the Games Workshop, Citadel brand, these new Vallejo Instant Inks, I believe they're called. I have not tried those yet, but I'm interested. I love Vallejo. But the Army Painter are really solid. They're the best kind of bang for the buck, and I'm loving them. I'm gonna buy the new like 100 paint set that's coming out in March. Can't wait to get a hold of that. So now I'm moving on to the armor and the cape. For the capes, I'm gonna use this orc skin green. Now, this orc skin green from Army Painter is a little bit intense, I feel. So I like to dilute it with a little bit of water in order to get more shadows and more highlights. Next, I'm gonna move on to this turquoise by Army Painter. It has a silly name, but I can't remember it at this point. And I'm putting that on the armor. And I'm really liking how the paint just kind of settles into the crevices, leaves the surfaces less so. It's just a great effect. Now I'm taking the bone color from Army Painter and I'm putting this onto the bases. And I've cheated a little bit with these bases by printing out an actual kind of like textured, interesting little base. And these bases are from, as I mentioned, OnePageRules, and I will leave that link below. So now I'm taking the dark wood, I'm putting that onto the wood portion of the axe and also onto the boots. And for the most part, this is the contrast paints that I'm going to use for these guys. And I've got this whole unit almost basically donezo. Now you could actually kind of like call this quits at this point if you wanted to. They look great, but I'm going to take it just a little bit further here. Now I've taken some Vallejo paints and I've stuck them into my wet palette, and I'm going to do some dry brushing with this sort of like off yellowish white, and I'm going to dry brush the armor, and I'm going to get this cool contrast. I'm going to be really gentle with this, so I'm going to wipe most to 99% of the paint off the brush onto a paper towel. So I'm just catching the surfaces of this, because if it's a little bit too wet, you can ruin this. And I'm doing this also with the off-white onto the highest surfaces of the gold parts of the axe, and also the lion pelt. And I'm gonna actually go back and grab a little of that off-white and focus it onto the head, the little lion face, so we create a little focal point on the miniature that draws the eye and creates a nice little contrast in that area. And I'm also going to dry brush a little bit onto the base and accentuate the stone and the textures that are printed on that. Now we just have a nice little cheapo black craft paint, and we're gonna just hit the rim really quick here. And I think that's always kind of like a nice effect when you have a whole unit kind of with a clean base like that. Now we're taking a little more of that off yellow, put a little bit of the neon yellow from Vallejo in there, which has a little bit of green in it, and I'm going to dry brush the surfaces of that cloak to kind of create a little bit more dynamic in the folds of the cloak here. We have a lot of nice little surfaces to catch on here, and for the most part I'm really happy with these white lions. They look just perfect for the table, and I can't wait to put them in with the rest of my High Elf army, which I will showcase on this channel eventually. And I've also taken a couple of these old school High Elf models and put this guy next to him so you could kind of see what they look like in the size. So thank you guys for watching today, and we're gonna roll that beautiful bean footage, and we'll see you next time.